Hello, my name is Ashley, this is Marissa, and this is Faithful Rattos. Welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about marked varieties that are on the H locus. This will not include roan. I'm going to make a whole video about roan because I think it's something interesting to talk about. But today we're going to be talking about the marked varieties, their genetics and stuff. I really enjoy this rat genetics series. It is sometimes actually some of my best performing videos, and it's something that I really like to make videos about. But before we get into the topic of today's video, I just wanted to say a little hello to Marissa. So this is one of my new baby does. If you've seen one of my more recent videos, she was looking at me when I was filming a previous video, so I thought I'd get her out to say hello. She is hopefully going to be a mum for me in the future, which is really exciting. She is a Siamese black-eyed, and yeah, she's just really, really lovely. I just wanted to handle her a little bit because she wanted handling. Don't mind the tail marking, it's not blood or anything, it's just a tail marking so I can tell her apart from her sister because they're pretty similar. She does, however, have like chew marks in her coat that I think somebody has been doing to her, so she is a little bit more identifiable in that regard. Hopefully in the future we don't need the tail marking. But yeah, this is Marissa. She'll be 9 weeks old tomorrow, so she's growing really nicely, and yeah, she's beautiful. She's very energetic though, as you can see, but yes, she's got a little tum tum. She is beautiful, and I'm super happy. I'll go put it back and then we can get into the topic. So I am going to do a quick recap on some of the terms that I'm about to use, just so we're all on the same page if you haven't watched any of my other rat genetics video, or if you aren't very clued up when it comes to rat genetics. So here we go. We are talking about alleles, and this is different versions of a gene that is on one loci, or locus in the singular. This is a position where the genes are. Alleles are different variants of those genes, and everybody gets 2 alleles for each placement, one from their mum and one from their dad, and that is how inheritance works. We also have phenotype, which is how the rat looks, and genotype, which is what their genetics are. Some genes are simple and we just have a simple recessive and a simple dominant. Dominants are labelled with a capital letter and recessives are labelled with a lowercase letter. Recessives need 2 copies of that allele to present in the phenotype. However, sometimes it's a little bit more complicated than that, and we have what is called incomplete dominance. There are 2 major examples of this when it comes to rat genetics. One is the C locus, which is all the shaded varieties, and the other, what we're talking about today, is the H locus and the marked varieties that are on this gene. So a lot of the alleles that I'm about to tell you about are a little bit different. Some of them denoted with a lowercase h, this is recessive. Some of them are denoted with a capital H, and these have varying levels of dominance. Now, before we get into talking about those, there's one other thing that I need to clarify, and that is my usage of the word self. So in previous videos I have said that this word self is what we call a non-agouti based rat, so a black based rat, one that doesn't show any agouti. However, there is also another usage of this word, and this is where some people get confused. I myself in the past have been confused by this word, and that is we also use self to mean unmarked. So I'm going to use it today in this video, but I just wanted to clarify that it's today in this video nothing to do with agouti and that sort of usage. I think it's a bit of a complex word because people use it in both, and if you're talking about a litter and some are marked and some are unmarked and some are agouti based and some are non-agouti based, it could get a little bit confusing, and it is a little bit confusing. I just thought I'd warn you about it before we get into it. Why is the doorbell ringing? So that was Tesco. I'm back, probably at a slightly different angle, and we're going to go through the alleles that can be present on the H gene, and then we'll also talk about the variety. So starting off, we have capital H by itself. This is the self or the unmarked gene. Then lowercase h by itself, this is the hooded gene. Then we have lowercase h with a little I. This is the Irish gene. Then we have capital H with a little e. This is the extreme hooded gene. Then we have capital H with a little re, this is the restricted hooded gene, and we also have capital HRO, this is the Essex gene, which I have talked about on my channel, and both of these alleles are lethal homozygous or lethal dominant, which means that if there are two present, the fetus is incompatible with life and won't exist. So we don't get a rat that has two copies of these alleles. Then we also have capital HN, this is the notched gene, and then we also have, which is a new gene that is being worked with, it is just now in provisional standards, is lowercase h du, and this is the down under gene. The down under gene is a bit different to all the other marked varieties because marked varieties tend to have a white belly and the markings are on their back. The down under gene produces colour splodges on the belly, which is really exciting. So now we come to talk about the different varieties. Now each variety, some of them, can be made by different combinations of these genes, and so it is sometimes really difficult to tell which gene is going on, what's happening, because there are multiple possibilities, and so things can get a little bit confusing. This is why in the UK we don't show based on genotype, we show based on phenotype, because we can't really look at a rat, especially in a marked locus, and go, I know exactly what genetics this rat has, because most of the time it's not the case. So starting off, we have self or unmarked, and this rat genotypically would be HH, capital H's, nothing going on there. Then hooded will be lowercase h sometimes, and this genetic coding can mock bareback, which is in provisional standards as well, and this is just the hood. They have the hood, but they don't have the stripe down the back. Then we have Berkshire, which for a long time I thought was pronounced Berkshire, but it's not. In my head I still say Berkshire, but it's Berkshire. So there are three combinations that can produce Berkshire. This is big H, lowercase h, big H, big HE, or big H, big HN. Some of these can mock a bareback or self as well. So that's the confusing thing, that some of these markings, they're not going to produce the same exact markings every single time because of how it works. What the marking gene does is tells the body to stop and start producing pigment, and that's why you have some white areas and some coloured areas, and that's not going to happen the same for every single fetus in every single litter. So we do have a variation of how this can express. So Irish can be capital H, lowercase hi, or lowercase hi, lowercase hi. This combination can mock self, Berkshire, and hooded and variegated. Now, variegated is a really interesting one. There is a lot of possible genetics going on here. So we have capital H, capital He, capital He, lowercase I, capital HRE, lowercase hi, capital HN, lowercase hi. This can mock pretty much all of them for variegated, self, hooded, Berkshire, badger. There is another variety that some people say, and that is very Berk, and this is where the Berkshire doesn't have the really strong demarcation lines. Then we have badger, which is a Berkshire but with facial markings, and that will normally be capital H, capital HRE. Then, as I've spoken about in another video, we have Essex. This is lethal dominant, so you won't get two copies of the Essex gene. But we have the unmarked gene and the Essex gene. So we have H, capital HRO, and the Essex has this really lovely fading effect. It's very similar to Berkshire and Badger, but it has this fading effect down the side. Then capped, which is, again, there's a lot of variety in the possibilities. We have capital HE, capital HE, capital HE, capital HN, or capital HN, capital HN. These can mock bareback as well. Capped is the colour is only on the head and not past the chin. And then down under there is a Berkshire version of this. So we have capital H, lowercase HDU, and then there's a hooded version of this, and we have lowercase h, lowercase HDU. Those are some of the varieties that can be produced on this locus, and it is very, very complicated. And as you can see from those combinations, different combinations can produce similar looking rats. The same genetic type could produce differently marked rats, and that is one of the things that makes breeding marked rats, especially to the standard, very difficult, because you can have specific genetics at play and the markings that come out are varied. So you can have two beautifully marked rats according to standard, and the babies they produce can be not that. There's one other thing to mention in this section of the video, and that is black-eyed white or patched. Now these tend to have the genetics capital HE, capital HE, or capital HE, capital HN, or capital HE, capital HRO. Now this will be a rat that has a lot of white, and predominantly white, overmarked white with very little colour. Now these rats are in fact banned at shows here in the UK, and that is because this variety of rat can have health issues. Now I'm not for certain what exactly they are, but I think it's like hearing loss and eye problems and things like that. So they are banned, and people who are breeding them on purpose are not to be trusted. They can pop up sometimes when we know that all of this genetic code can be quite difficult to determine what's going on, so they can pop up out of litters, and obviously breeders are breeding for them to not have issues, but they can, and that is why breeding for them and showing them is highly, highly, highly not done in the UK, and that is why showing them is banned. That was a lot. I think that was a lot for me and probably a lot for you. I'm hopefully going to put on screen some really nice graphics that explain what I'm saying as I'm saying them. But that being said, marked rats can be absolutely beautiful, and I know a lot of people love facial markings, as do I. I am a sucker. I am particularly a sucker for an agouti based rat in marked. I think having the white next to the ticking really brings out the ticking, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. Marked varieties are some of my favourite. They are some of the most difficult to get right when it comes to the markings, because the markings are up to Mother Nature. It's not something that we as breeders can control. So yeah, that is the H locus. It is one of the more complex locus when it comes to rat genetics, and is one that took me a while to get my head around. And I think it's because it's not like other ones where this and this will produce this, this and this will produce that, because there's so much variation and possibility when it comes to the H locus. So it did take me a little bit of time to get my head around this. One of the sources that I used that was really helpful to get my head around this was Estelle Sanford's website, Alpha Centauri. Has all the genetics listed. That was much easier for my mind to sort of understand and decompress the information, something that has been a bit difficult for me for a couple of years now, when the other sort of areas of rat genetics have been pretty easy for me to understand. This is one of the difficult ones, so this is why it's one of the later videos in this series. But yes, I absolutely love marked rats, and I think a lot of people do. I hope this was really helpful. If you have any questions, or you need something clarifying, or you think I've made a mistake, please do comment down below and let me know so I can correct myself or help you out. And yes, thanks very much for watching. You can stick around and subscribe to see my videos about my rats, my rat keeping journey, my breeding journey, and the information that I've learned along the way. You can also join my channel as a member. The different levels have various cool different perks. I'm trying to really beef up that part of my channel, so if you are interested and you love rats as much as I do, please do come and join us as a channel member. And yes, I don't think there's anything else left for me to say except thanks very much for watching.